What people didn't know, looking inwards, was that we actually nearly split up. We went through a really terrible year. It was a really hard year, and we started practicing Tantra. And that was the same time that we got the car, and that has transformed our relationship again. It's almost, it's not almost, it is. We've totally madly fallen in love with each other again.
Welcome back to the Infinite Life podcast with me, your host, Katische Haberfield. Today, I've decided to invite Ruby onto the podcast because in the last few years, you and Tom have had a change in circumstances and you got given, I think it was a car from a friend. You two have begun having adventures together. And I feel like at that point, when you started being able to get out and have weekends away and explore, there was this kind of a transformation in your relationship, this real spark of joy that was reunited between the two of you. So if you could give us a little bit of a insight into how you guys met, how long you've been together, because we're talking about love, and love can come in all sorts of ways, but he's not your first romantic partner in this lifetime. And then maybe at some stage in there, we can talk about how things have changed since the car and stuff like that.
Lovely. Okay, that's brilliant. Yeah, so I had 52 not boyfriends before Tom. Tom was lucky number 53. And I had a couple of long-term relationships which were disastrous. And then I was on my own for 2 years. So I really started dating myself and thinking, what do I need? How can I love myself? And that was a deep, profound journey. And I do feel that's a really important part of Tom and I's relationship, that I had that time on my own to figure out, what do I like? What do I need? What don't I need? And then one day I painted this picture of this man, and he was playing guitar, and I was saying to my friend, I said, oh, I want him to look at the sky and say things like, look at the beautiful colours. And she was laughing her head off, thinking I was crazy. And then I put the painting away, forgot about it. And at that time, it was when the internet had just started, but I didn't have a computer at home. And I'd met a guy from work, and we was meant to go on this date. So I'd arranged that my friend had the children, because I've got 3 children. And so I had this free time all day, and then I got ready for this date, and he posted a letter through the door saying that he couldn't come on this date because he was schizophrenic and he didn't want to ruin my life. And I was like, oh, great, what am I going to do now for the day? So I went to the library on the computer, and I totally forgot that years earlier, at least 2 years earlier, because I'd had this time on my own, I'd signed up to go on a date for free, which is like an online dating thing. And this guy had sent me this message, and I read what he'd written, and I thought, oh, he seems quite nice. And I was ready by this point to start going out with someone again. So I messaged him back, and you only got a set amount of time on the computer. So then I shared my phone number, and he shared his, and we was texting. We texted for a week. And then we met to go for a walk at the park. And my first impression of him when I saw him come in was, oh my gosh, he's so short. I'm 5'2". He isn't actually that short. I think he's 5'6", something like that. But to me, he looked really short, and I thought, oh no. I don't know why, but I just thought, oh no. And then we had this amazing date at the park, and I really felt like I wanted to touch his hand all the time, like I just had that thing. And then after that, we went to the pictures, and I went to a football match with him because he loves football. I don't, but I thought I'll go anyway. And one of my children was really ill. It was like a disaster. But 3 months in, he moved in, and that was 19 years ago. And he does say things like, look at the sky, because he's a photographer, and he does play guitar, and all the things that I've painted in this picture, he does do. And we've never argued in the way of shouting at each other. We've never name called. If we come up against conflict, we separate physically in the house. We deal with however that's coming up, and then we meet back again, and we do a thing called effective communication, which I can talk about in a bit. But it's really interesting. You said that when we got given that car, it was just by a lady. She wasn't even my friend. It was just a lady that had come to some of my events. Around that time, what people didn't know, looking inwards, was that we actually nearly split up. We went through a really terrible year. It was a really hard year. And we started practicing Tantra. And that was the same time that we got the car. And that has transformed our relationship again. It's not almost, it is. We've totally madly fallen in love with each other again. So that came at the same time, but I've not been that verbal about that. So that's interesting how you could see looking in of that.
Yeah, very interesting. And I have heard you mention a small bit in one of the videos about Tantra. What made you think, not going into Tantra just yet, but what made you think that the solution was Tantra? How did you suddenly come upon that idea? Was it something that was recommended to you? I know you read a lot. Did you read an article about it, or did somebody else who was going through relationship difficulties say to you, how about this?
So yeah, so I won't go into the personal details of around what was happening around our relationship, but I'd had this book for years. I'd bought it years earlier, and it was sitting on a bookshelf. And what happened was, we was led in bed one night, and I said to Tom, I'm done. Like, I'm just totally done. I'm not in this now. And Tom was really upset. But I'd got to the point where I'd just switched off. And I'd had this 6-month plan in my diary that we couldn't just separate because financially that's not possible. But I did think in 6 months' time, I'll have saved up enough money for us to completely split. And Tom was crying, really crying. And it's such a weird thing. You won't think it's weird, but Tom's dad had cancer. And before he'd gone into the hospice, I'd gone to their house, and he'd held my hands, and he said to me, he promised me that you look after him. You'll always look after him. And I said, of course I'll always look after him. And then he went into the hospice, and I never saw him again. And he died. That was years ago. So I'm laid in bed, totally done. And then in the corner of my room, Tom's dad appeared, and he said to me, you promised me that you'd look after him. And I was like, what? And I looked at Tom, and it was like I saw him like a child, almost, this innocent, like, being that was so deeply hurting. I just felt like I needed to comfort him. And it's almost like my heart had fully opened to this. And then we were like, how are we going to move forward? And I'd heard about Tantra, but nothing really much. And this book was on the bookshelf, and I said, look, why don't we look at that? And it was like something that I'd got and we'd forgot about. And it was from that, and it was brilliant because for 13 weeks, you don't do anything like sexually or physically apart from holding hands and maybe holding each other on the chest while you're breathing and stuff. But there was nothing, there wasn't a pressure on it. It wasn't a thing. So a lot of people think Tantra is just like sex, but it was a deep connection, and that helped us rebuild. So yeah, it was just a book.
Okay, well, yeah, because I know that lots of people do go away for weekends for Tantra workshops. So in my mind, I was like, did they go to a workshop together? And these days you even see sessions for couples where they just sit there and hug each other and let all the emotions come out. So that's fascinating that you picked it up earlier and it was sitting there in the bookshelf. And I think that it's a really interesting insight that you said there, that you were able to see Tom and his inner child basically hurting. Because I guess that's the problem when we do start to have difficulties in any sort of relationship, whether it's a friend or your mother or your father or your sister, your brother, a romantic partner, is it feels like your tongue gets wild and you mortally wound them, so to speak, because you can't see them anymore the way that you saw them before. You only see, feel, and hear your anger and your thoughts and judgments about them. But it's like Tom's relative was able to bring that energy through to
Mm,
you. So I find that really, really amazing, really interesting insight.
yeah, it was incredible. Before my heart was completely shut. I was like, I'm that kind of person that I'll keep giving chances and I'm really kind and stuff. But when I'm done,
Yeah.
no going back.
Mhm.
That was just, yeah, what a moment that was. Just massive.
And do you still use the effective communication that you started to talk about, where you separate yourselves and go into different rooms, or how does that work? Explain that to me.
Yeah, so right in the beginning of our relationship, in the first couple of weeks actually, I went to a party and got drunk, and then the next week Tom went out and got drunk, and we both said, "I don't like the other person when they're drunk." So from that minute we said we're not drinking again. So we stopped alcohol straight away at the beginning. And I think because we've not had that alcohol through our relationship, you've got more of a level head to deal with things. And we also, I don't remember us sitting down and saying we won't be mean to each other. I don't remember that we had this conversation, but the respect was there from the beginning that I wouldn't say anything hurtful or he wouldn't say anything hurtful that can't be then retracted. Do you know what I mean? Because once you've said it, it's out there. So
Mm-mm.
I just think we had this real respect for each other. And we also knew that in past relationships, people had been horrible to us, and we didn't want to bring that in. And then at some point early on in the relationship, I can't remember, a few years in, we'd learnt about this effective communication. So basically, when you are upset or angry or sad or triggered by something, you don't blame the other person. So I wouldn't say to him, "You've done this to me and you've done that." I would go and reflect on it and think, "Why am I being triggered about whatever it is? What in my past has brought that back up? What am I feeling now? Where am I in my cycle as a woman? Am I just before I'm going to bleed? Is that why I'm more emotional and upset?" All of these things, and then you have this rational conversation with yourself. And then if there's still an issue, you say to the other person, "I've got this problem. Please, can we sit and talk about it? I don't need you to fix me. I don't need you to respond or anything. I'm just going to explain how I feel." And then you come at it from, I feel like I have been triggered. It's all about me, my things. You're not putting the blame on the other person. Obviously, if they'd done something terrible, like if they cheated on you or I don't know, or was violent or something, then that's different. But that's never happened in our relationship. So that would be different, and I get that. But it's all about where you come from yourself. And then you can say to the other person, "I need you to work on this." For example, because I was in a violent relationship in the past, if Tom's in the kitchen cooking and he's banging the pots around, even after 19 years, I automatically think, "Oh, he's cross with me." I
Mm.
automatically think that. So Tom knows that, and he'll say to me, "I'm not cross with you. I'm just going to do the washing up." Like he knows to, so that makes me go, "Ah, okay." So it's having that awareness of each other's things and being respectful about those things. And it works brilliantly.
Yeah, okay. And so a lot of people that wouldn't even get to that stage. How did you get to the point where Tom was aware that the banging of the saucepans meant that you thought that he was angry? Did you have to have some kind of a frank conversation? Was that very early on? What, because a lot of
Uh,
people don't have the courage to be able to even associate that.
I think no, the banging of the pans was recently, which is why it's in my mind. And
Mhm.
I've not said anything for a long time. I just sit there thinking, "Oh, I know rationally he isn't angry at me. I know it." But in my mind, because of that trigger from that trauma, I think it. And then recently I said to him, "I've got to tell you this." So some things have taken a long time, like
Mm, mm.
other things have been really quick. If he does something or if I do something and that winds the other person up, to the point where you feel angry, it's easier to say, look, when you do whatever it is, that really winds me up. And not in a fun way, but like in a really annoying way. And then you can both go, all right, I didn't realize that. And then not do it again. And I think the thing is, every day we've decided to choose each other. This is what's really important, and be grateful for each other, because we remember how awful it was before, like all the other relationships I've had, or when I was on my own, that lonely feeling when you're led in bed and you've got nobody to cuddle. Is it not worth putting the effort into your relationship and working on it to keep something really good than going back to that? That's always in your mind as well. I think it's being able to, if you're with somebody that you can't talk to, understand this. I've got loads of friends in the same position. It's really hard, and I've been there before. And I do feel then you need to do something to work on that together. And if one of you is not willing to do that, then really that's not your person.
Yeah,
I'm
and I
really
think
lucky in that way. Sorry, go on.
no, you're right. Exactly, because and that statement that you made, you choose each other every single day. It's a conscious effort to remind yourself that I choose you, I choose to be in this relationship, so therefore I will do what I need to do to reflect. And when you do your reflecting, Ruby, are you the kind of person who needs to go out in nature and think about it, or do you paint or journal it? A lot of people just sit there and they stew, right? They might storm off into a room and stew, or they may eat, or some people who drink alcohol might drink alcohol, or whatever it is. How do you personally go through reflection? Because reflection in a relationship is different than your own self-reflection or spiritual growth reflection or artistic reflection, because the relationship reflection is like really heightened emotions usually. So how do you actually do that process for yourself? How do you reflect?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want it to sound like, oh, we've got this perfect relationship. It takes work.
Mm,
But I think there's only ever been twice where I've been in that heightened emotion, and Tom
okay.
has as well at the same time.
Mhm,
And that's, both times was when we were moving house. And it was both times it was so stressful, and we were so angry at the what was going on, not with each other, but what was going on. We got very short with each other. And then but we did realize we're exhausted and all that stuff. So we're very lucky in a way that if angry about something, Tom's pretty chill. Or if like he's really angry about something, I'm really chill. So we've never had that. And I do think alcohol is the main cause of people having this anger at the same time, drinking. So because we've not got that, it's quite a balanced thing.
mm,
Um, and we both know to give each other that space. We're quite intuitive on saying, "Are you okay? Is some what's wrong and stuff." Um, and we both know where we'll be like, we'll have this phrase actually, and we go, "Yeah, but no," and then we know not to poke the other person and delve, just let them get on with it. And my process is sometimes it's quick. I can just go and off, and I'll go, what's come up, and it'll go and then it's in my head. But if it's a longer process, it's I do journal on it. So
mhm,
I write everything out that I'm feeling, and then it's almost like the question comes up, but why? But why? And then you write some more. Yeah, but why though? And then eventually you'll get back to whatever it is. So
mm.
that's the process that I do.
Okay, very interesting. And have you two, there's lots of different ways that people can understand their partners. Like, for example, some people follow things like the five love languages or something like that. How did you get to know, for example, and you don't have to go into personal stories again here, but did you explore love languages as a way for understanding how you guys both needed to be shown affection, or was there other ways that you discovered what Tom's emotional needs were?
I think because we're both massive readers and learners, we have always delved into loads of different stuff. So love language, human design, all the different things. And at one point, Tom will be learning about something and then he'll tell me about it. And at another point I will, and we have these conversations around it. And we ask questions. We're curious. We ask questions. And I think because we're both earth signs as well, it's very similar things. So that's easy. Food, comfort, all that stuff. I think it is learning, basically learning yourself first, and then you can speak and say to the other person, oh, I really like it when, for me, like I really like it if Tom cooks me food, like at the weekend or something when he's not working, because that to me is like love. Food is love on a plate. But he doesn't really like cooking. He's very good at it, but he doesn't really like it. But he loves giving me a massage, and I love receiving a massage. So it's like a dance. I think relationships are like this dance. I might like something, but he doesn't want to do it because he doesn't like it. And then you've got to accept, okay, so can I get that from somebody else in the way of maybe I'll go and meet a girlfriend and eat out, and then I'm still being cooked for. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Or whatever it is. Or Tom will want to go to a heavy metal concert, and it's a bit loud for me now, so he'll go with his brothers, and it's that dance all the time of I really need this, and you can't be the person to give it to me because that's not what you like. And instead of forcing that person or making that person feel guilty for it, where else can I find it? I can't remember what you actually first said, what your question was.
You've answered it, because
Oh,
you've also talked about love languages exactly there then, because
oh yeah.
one of the things that the love languages book talks about is once you know what your partner is, it's not about what you like, it's what they like. But what you've shown is that there's actually that understanding that your partner doesn't have to do that thing for you that you like. You can get that from someone else. You don't have to store all of your love within the relationship. And I think that's a distinction that is worth pointing out, because you can, and maybe it's just my misinterpretation, but you can read that book and think, oh, I've got to suck it up. They like massages. I don't like giving massages, but I have to give them a massage because that's their love language. So what you've shown me is, no, you don't have to. They can go and book a massage, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
But you have to be emotionally mature enough to know they're not seeking something outside of the relationship. It's just part of what they need, and therefore there's nothing to be jealous of or worried about, or you don't need to hold on or try to control that in any way, shape, or form. So that's interesting.
No one person can give you everything you need. It's
Yeah.
impossible. You just can't do it. And I think that's the trouble, the expectation. So this is huge in any relationship. Expectations are a killer, I think, because if you, for example, have the expectation, right, when Tom comes home tonight, we're going to do this and this is going to happen. And then Tom comes home from work and he's tired, he maybe had a crappy day at work, and all he wants to do is just go up to his office and maybe listen to music or something. And then I'm thinking, oh, he's not done that thing that I made up in my own head, what he was going to do. And then you're annoyed. So having no expectations of each other, I think that's a really key point as well.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And getting back to the adventures in the cars, what what have been some of the most memorable places that you've been to since you've been out and exploring? How has that changed your definition of fun and enjoyment of each other's company?
Oh, so we're both mad on music, and Tom found this country artist who Stephen Wilson Jr. is called. And in his country songs, he was brought up religious. So there's lots of references to the Bible, which Tom knows I really liked. So he said, "I'll listen to this guy," and I listened to it, and I was like, "Oh, it's brilliant!" And then we found out a couple of weeks later he was on tour in England, but all the tickets had sold out. We couldn't get them anywhere. And then Tom went on this site which lets you know about tickets that have come up if somebody tries to resell them or something. But every time it came up, as soon as you went on it, they were gone. There was like no tickets. So this particular night, we have a date night on a Wednesday. We'd gone to the beach, and it was lovely. And Tom kept saying, "Do you want to sit down a bit? Do you want to sit down?" And I was like, "No, let's do this. No, let's do this." And I kept thinking, why does he wanting to sit down? He don't normally want to sit down. Anyway, then we watched the sunset together and went and got in the car. And he went, "Look at my phone." And I looked at his phone, and it said something like Stephen Wilson Jr. 2 tickets or something. And I won't repeat what I said, it was swearing. and then I looked at it again and I went, "No way, you got tickets." And he said, "I did, to Glasgow, which is in Scotland, which is like up the country." So we went in the car to Glasgow, and we were going to sleep in the car because we didn't have any money for a hotel. But this lady I'd worked with 7 years earlier, bless her, said we could go and stay at her house for the night. So if we didn't have the car, it'd have been really hard because we wouldn't have probably been able to afford the train fare because it's a long way. So we went to see this concert together. It was amazing. We were right at the front. He was brilliant. It just felt love, like it was just, and we had a great day in the botanical gardens and all around Glasgow. It's like the best adventure that we've had so far. And all the way there we were playing his music, and all the way back we were playing music in the car. And I've got sensory processing disorders, which means that I'm really affected by smells and lights and all that kind of stuff. So going on public transport is hideous for me because people stink of perfume and aftershave. And so being in the car, you're just in your own little bubble. Oh, amazing. It was that good. I actually wanted to move to Glasgow. I was like, I love it there. It's so good. Yeah. And it just lets us go to places that you can't get to on public transport. Yeah.
And speaking of that, one of the things that does really hurt relationships, and is the cause of most relationships breaking up, is financial situations. So how have you two, without going into specific details, but how have you navigated, because you're not, everybody is going through financial difficulties at the moment, it feels like globally things have just changed for everybody, but how have you two managed to navigate different situations? Like, for example, you finally got that allotment plot, and you didn't have the money to start buying all the bits and pieces, and you got seeds sent to you from people who watch your YouTube and everything like that. Now, in some relationships, that could be seen as, oh, here she goes again with a new hobby or thing that she wants to do, or do you know what I mean? And we don't have the money for it, and here's the stress, and why does she always do this to me? Or you can say, or he does this, do you know, the same thing. Why does he need a new lens for his camera? Or how do you guys navigate all the ups and downs that you've experienced with money?
I think it's not important to us. I think that's the thing. It's important in the way that we need it. And yes, I'm open to all the money, please, but it's not a priority. It's not a priority. It's like, I know that if Tom needs something for whatever he's doing, then he needs it. If I need something for whatever I'm doing, then I need it. We've never had an issue with that. Now, if we were really irresponsible and, for example, we couldn't pay the rent, but then I went out and bought a load of art equipment, I could imagine there'd be conflict there. But I think we both trust each other to be responsible enough to take part in whatever we need to do. So our money's split. We've never had a joint bank account. My money goes into my bank, Tom's money goes into his bank. He pays some of the bills, I pay some of the bills. If one month he's short for something, he'll say, have you got 20 quid? And I'll be like, yeah, and I'll send it, or the other way around. But it's never been an issue. It's never been a problem. I think it's made us sad in a lot of ways, but we generally, again, one of us is really sad and the other's all right. So you can comfort the other one and be like, it's hard now, but it'll be fine again. Come on, we've got a nice house to live in, we've got food, we're fine. What do you need? Yeah, I just think it's just not been that important in that way. And again, it's about choosing what's important. And what's important is your health, each other, and you can do loads of stuff for free. Tons of things.
Yeah, exactly. My guides are always telling me to look at the situation in terms of maximizing what you can do with what you've got and focusing on all the things that come your way that don't cost a single cent. Like I can be sitting on the couch on the weekend and having a cup of tea and watching you, for example, and they're like, so did that cost you anything? And I'm like, no. Electricity? No. Ruby invested to give you some lighthearted entertainment and insight into creativity for half an hour to an hour, but you didn't have to shell out anything in your hand right there and then. Like I could donate to you or whatever it is, but yes, that's a blessing. That didn't necessarily cost you anything, and that Ruby's got monetized, so there's going to be potentially some benefit for her anyway. Because often I'll sit there and I'll get stressed and I'm like, I hit the like button, I've written a comment, and today I would like to give everybody $1 million for their YouTube video, but I can't. And Zakael and Michael say, you can't. You just have to send them love and gratitude for making you in a buoyant mood for half an hour, for giving you inspiration. And did you need money for that? No, not today. And when you do have money and it's big, then you can donate, but you don't have to add that layer of guilt onto something that's there. And I think that's a really good lesson, is that we can look around at ourselves and say, I don't have this, I don't have that. But then they always keep reminding me, what do you have? And then you're like, oh, plenty of things, right? And they're like, count your blessings, say gratitude for what you've got. And like I saw that you posted a picture of a leaf that Tom brought you in today or yesterday.
Yeah.
And it's the small things that spark joy in relationships. But it's an interesting comment that you made about the fact that you keep separate bank accounts, because is that something that you did in previous relationships? So in previous relationships, was money an issue in a negative way? Yeah.
Yeah. So the kid's dad, I didn't work because I was looking after the kids, and he did, and he had all the money. If I wanted to buy anything like a loaf of bread, he would give me a pound. I can't remember how much bread was back then, probably not very much. And then as soon as I walked back in, he'd be like that with his hand for the change, like it was a real controlling issue. And Tom and I have talked about, should we get a joint bank account? And then we was like, what's the point? Do you know what I mean? There's no point to it, really. I think we talked recently about getting a joint bank account to put all the bill money in to make it easier, but we've just not done it. But yeah, I've always had my own bank account, and since splitting up with the kid's dad, and that was like when I was 22, 23 or something. I've just always had my own money, but we've never consciously said, oh, should we have our own bank account? Should we get but it was only like probably 3 months ago or something we talked about a joint bank account after 19 years.
Yeah, that's really fascinating. And is there anything else that you would like to comment about lessons that you've learned or insights that you've got from people that you've found inspirational with relationships, for example? Anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, so I talked to Tom because he's at work today, and he couldn't be here. And I said to him the other day, I said, "What tips have you got? What do you think?" So we was having this conversation backwards and forwards, and we both pretty much had the same things: choosing each other, effective communication, being responsible for yourself. So knowing, as a woman, for me, knowing that this is where I am in my cycle, so I'm gonna be sad, or I'm going to be horny, or I'm going to be whatever, and communicating that to my partner and him knowing where I am in my cycle as well. That's really helpful. Working your life around that, planning your life around that if you can, is really helpful. Having independent hobbies, doing things together, but also having plenty of stuff to do yourself, not putting everything into this one relationship, even though it's like really important, still having your own friends and going off and doing things, because that gives you something to talk about. If you're just together
Mm.
all the time doing the same things, what have you got to talk about? Always being curious and learning about things. So again, you've got things to bring to the relationship. Some of the stuff Tom's interested in, I couldn't care less. Some of the stuff I'm interested in, he couldn't care less. But we'll still listen to each other, and being able to have deep discussions about things, not just this surface level. I feel a lot of relationships are very surface level. What we're going to eat for tea, or you've got to take the kids to football tonight, or this kind of, there's none of that deeper connection stuff. Like in the beginning, when you meet, you want to know everything about the other person. You ask questions, you're curious, you're interested. And still now, even after all these years, we're still learning things about each other and asking questions. And I think that's a really key thing. Having a good sex life, or a physical, intimate life together, I think that is really important. And not using that as a weapon. I know that many women, especially, use withholding sex as like a weapon in a relationship. That just causes resentment and anger and all that kind of stuff. And if you're not comfortable in your sex life, being able to have that conversation with the other person and saying, "This is how I feel," or "Can we do more of this?" Or, and the other important thing is, all the way through, and this might be just because I'm bonkers, but I've always surprised Tom in different ways. And it could be anything from, once he was working shifts, so he didn't finish till midnight, and I'd set up the back garden. I'd bought a massive paddling pool that filled the whole back garden and hung fairy lights and sheets and everything over it to make a den. And I was waiting for him. It was like midnight, and I was waiting for him in by the pool. And he was like, "What there?" And I was like, "No, we're not going to bed. We're going to get in the pool." It was hideous because all these spiders had collected on the fabric. So as soon as we got in the water, because of the heat, I'm guessing, and the splashing, all these spiders followed. Oh, it was horrible. So we just ran in. That's like a core memory of something. Or like every Friday night before he comes in the door, I might dress up as something silly, or I've got instruments and I'll do a little song when he comes in. It's Friday. And it's just silly things to keep it fun and exciting, instead of just being like, at your home now. That's boring. Life should be fun and exciting. And lastly, understanding your levels of tiredness. My kids are all grown up now, but I know that when they were younger, at tea time is the worst time of the day, because the kids are hungry, the dog wants his dinner, and your partner's just come home from work. They're tired. They've had a a day at work with people that probably they don't like very much, you're both at this heightened state of tiredness, and then that's when you can clash. So it's nice to say, what can I do for you in this time to help you? How can I help you? And understand that just because of all this going on doesn't mean that I'm angry at this person. It's not that person's fault that all this is going on. So don't be like resentful and stuff, and know your triggers. If I'm hungry, I'm really ratty. So know that actually if I eat something, I'm going to be nicer. And then the other thing, we have lots of little time. So it's things like, I really like being read to. So sometimes Tom will tuck me into bed and read me a little story. And I really like that. And it's like giving away that responsibility of being an adult, because you adult all the time. Or Tom likes it when I do the silly things, like I was saying before, I'll put on a little show or something, and we just laugh. And it's not taking yourself so seriously. Being a grown-up's so serious. And then you get in a relationship, you think, oh, I've got to be all serious now and proper. But having that magical spark to your days and having that childlike fun and curiosity, I think that's what keeps it alive.
Yeah, beautiful, beautiful. I like the idea of being read to. That's really nice. And you crack me up because I've been watching some reels that have come into my Facebook feed, and they were of people doing exactly what you said, like a wife dressing up each time her husband came home. And I was just like, Ruby's like my news feed at the moment.
It is fun.
And so just to end the episode, I know you've been going on a new spiritual journey with Jesus. And has that involved Tom as well, or do you have different belief systems? And how has that impacted your relationship? Has it increased it? Have you felt new feelings towards each other? Because Jesus is a pretty strong energy, and it's a heart-opening energy when I experience it, but it can be something that can send people opposite ways as well. So I was just curious how that's been impacting your relationship while we're on the topic of love.
Yeah, it's been really interesting actually, because we both have different. I was brought up a Christian, Tom was brought up Catholic. We both rejected it when we were teenagers, and so rejected religion. That's what we've rejected. And then I had this experience. I didn't want it. I wasn't actually ready for it, and I didn't want it. But Jesus has ended up in my life in a huge way, and it's been weird and amazing. And I felt a bit like, oh no, this is going to really ruin our relationship, because Tom is totally against anything like that. But actually, again, we've approached it with curiosity. We've approached it with communicating well. So I said, I don't want you to feel weird about this, or like that I'm going to run off and stuff. There's always been that chance that I'd run off with a cult all my life, but it's never happened. So it doesn't surprise him that there's a new thing. But it has been really good. We've had some really deep conversations around it about what does it mean? How does that work? And he's not in it, but we have read the Bible together and discussed what we think it means. I've started going to church the past few weeks, which I never thought I'd go to church, but I found a really good uplifting church and I love it. And he just thinks it's hilarious that I'm going to church. And we've just keeping talking about it, I think, just keeping talking. And he said the other day, because I'd gone to church in the morning and then there was a church thing at night, people were being baptized. It was amazing. It was like this rock concert. I loved it. And as I was going, he went, oh, he said, I'm losing you to the church. He said, twice in a day. And I said, listen to me. I said, if you're fed and we're still having sex, you're all right, aren't you? And he was like, oh, all right then. It's like just communicating about it. And Tom's very quiet and very introverted, call himself, where I am I'm a little bit of both. I can be extroverted, but I do need my quiet time as well. And I understand that for him, going to church and singing and praising and dancing would be a nightmare for him. Even if he believed, it'd be a nightmare for him. So again, not forcing my own things onto him and accepting him for who he is. And then if eventually he comes and starts believing in Jesus, happy days. And if he doesn't, he doesn't. So I think it's just that communication, really.
Mm. And it makes sense, because what you talked about earlier when we were talking is that you have to make space for things in your life that you do separately. But yeah, naturally there is that fear. Oh, is Ruby going to change because she's gone down that path? But what you're doing is reassuring him, I'm still Ruby and I still love you, but I have to do this for myself.
And I have changed, and actually he thinks it's for the better. Like, I'm much calmer, I'm much more peaceful, my mind's quiet. Like, it's incredible the difference in me. And he said actually it's been brilliant because it's been a good change. He's seen a good change, so it can only be a good thing, can't it?
Yeah, beautiful. That's been an hour, Ruby. So I
Oh,
wanted
wow.
to I wanted to thank you and honor you for your time today, because I know you've got a business to run and it's a normal day of the week for you. I'm heading into the weekend, so I wish you and Tom a beautiful weekend. And thank you so much for your time. Thank you for enlightening me about how a successful relationship works and how you two have made it work together, and for sharing the little tips and insights into what you've done. And we send love to all other listeners and watchers out there, and hope that love blesses them in their life as well. Namaste. Thank you, Ruby.
Thank you for having me. It's been wonderful.
Thank you.